Now, what's up, everybody? It's your boy DFSUpNorth here with another showdown breakdown. It is week 14. We got Texans and Chiefs. I apologize for being muted there at the first 8 seconds. You were not going crazy. I was talking, but it was muted. So we got Chiefs and Texans in KC. 41. Is it 41 or is it 41 and a half? Let me see here what we are looking at for a total. I want to say it's 41. It is 41. Chiefs 4-point home favorites. Going to be a good game and a very, very important game. The Texans are sitting right above the Chiefs in the wild card race. We got Daniel Jones going down with an Achilles injury today, which means that last wild card spot is absolutely wide open here. The Chiefs need a win badly. The Texans need a win badly. I mean, the Texans are obviously in a little bit better spot. They've got one more win. But this is a very, very important game, and I expect really the Chiefs to come out and dominate. So let me take a look here and see what we've got going on here. The first thing, we're actually going to run this a little bit differently today. We're going to look at our domination station, which is our optimizer. I'm going to go through the cheat sheets as normal, but we're also going to take a look at, this is a VIP sheet that my boy Spreadsheets does for all of the showdowns, something that we get for our showdowns. And obviously a lot of you guys are watching VIPs, but basically breaks down all of the similar games that we've had in showdowns to say, hey, what does it look like, right? Where do we see, what sort of things do we see happening? All right. So from the Houston Texans side of it, right? Typically, we are seeing if they're doing well, right? The QB being the nuts 25% of the time, the wide receiver. So basically, it's either CJ Stroud or Nico Collins. The rest of everybody else, pretty rare, right? Opponent in these games, 8% of the time was a QB, 17% of the time was an opposing wide receiver. And we saw lots of sort of heavy Texans stacks that, we see in those types of games. On the opposite side of the ball, we see the Kansas City Chiefs. And here, obviously, the QB coming in almost half the time, which makes a lot of sense when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Oppositionally, running back actually has been the better play, but with Woody Marks and Nick Chubb sort of sharing the load here, I don't love it a ton. And then if we look at stack probabilities, that's going to tell us in all these games that we have, how does that lineup work out? And this is actually for DraftKings, just so we're aware. But 3-3, 25% of the time, 25% of the time, it's a 4-2 either way. And then 26-ish% of the time, 25% of the time, it is a 3-3. So when we look at captains from this season so far, we've got Nico Collins leading the way for the Texans and Patrick Mahomes leading the way for the Chiefs. That makes a ton of sense when we think about it anecdotally from this season. Who has been the guy? All right, when we look at the flex, who is showing up? Mahomes lots of times, Hollywood Brown too. If we look at we rank these by numbers, Harrison Butker is the second most likely to show up. Rashee Rice 3, Travis Kelce though more than Rashee Rice. So that's interesting on that side of the ball. Fairbairn, who I love, is in there a ton, but then Dalton Schultz leading the way in the flex spot. So if we look at captain probabilities here, Mahomes at the QB is about 1 in 4, which is about as high as we get. And then we've got Houston QB or Chiefs wide receiver following that up. So we've got guys like Rashee Rice or Nico Collins, right? So this kind of tells us where we want to go. All right. Interesting data dive from the current season, right? 92% of the lineups contain at least one QB. So that tells me that you want a QB in your lineup. Only 5% have used the whole $50,000 salary cap. So we want to get off the salary cap. The actual nuts average salary is $47,528. Most of the, almost 3/4 of lineups have had $4,000, a player that was $4,000 or less, and 10% have had a dead min player. Majority of the time, we're looking at a 4-2 captain percentage, right? It goes wide receiver, running back, QB. So that's actually opposite of what we're seeing traditionally or historically from these guys tonight. Captain correlation, right? So if you're the QB or the Houston captain is, let's say, a wide receiver, right? 25% of the time, Nico Collins has got the tight end in the flex. Right. If we look at KC captain, Mahomes is almost always going to have that wide receiver, but not as often as he has or twice as often, actually, as a tight end, which is interesting because we see Kelsey actually show up in the nuts quite a bit. KC captain with opponent in the flex, you're looking at mostly wide receivers. So maybe that's telling us that we want to get a Nico Collins or a Jaden Higgins in our lineup. So that's really actionable info, I think, stuff that we can remember when we are building our lineup. So let's get to it. Let's talk a little bit about who my favorite captains are, right? We talked right off the bat about Mahomes. Okay. Obviously, this is a tough defense. Mahomes has been great, even in his losses. He has legit rushing upside. Like, I think that he is arguably the best play anywhere, captain, MVP, flex, whatever, right? Following that up with Rashee Rice, the Texans have been elite with their zone defense, but that's actually what Rice does the best, all right? Or where he is much better against zone defenses. So even though he's going to see a lot of Derek Stingley, we're talking that zone coverage. He's good at finding soft spots, and I think that if we can get Mahomes and Rice together in a lot of lineups, we're feeling good about ourselves, right? Nico Collins, fine. CJ, obviously he's a stud, but he is going up against Trent McDuffie, who maybe has lost a step, but is still one of the best D-backs in the league. CJ Stroud, obviously, returning from injury last week, didn't do much, didn't necessarily have to. I think that we see him get ramped up a little bit more here. And then I think Travis Kelce is probably your final option to be the nuts captain. We've seen that. You could go Kyamini Fairbairn here with the kickers. I do love him as a flex. I will be massively overweight, but you know, he's another viable option too. Let's talk about the running back situation with both teams. It's a mess, right? Woody Marks, Nick Chubb sharing the usage. Woody Marks is not that good. All right. I think as the season goes on here, we see a little bit more Nick Chubb. Even though Woody Marks took it over, I think we continue to see a decent amount of Nick Chubb, especially near the goal line. He is much better down there than Marks has been. And at Marks's price on both sites, it's really hard to play him. I would much rather play Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, Brashard Smith. All three are likely to be in the mix somewhere. We saw Smith go for a 0 last week with the return of Pacheco, but Hunt and Pacheco, it's just so hard. Between the two of them, they're likely just going to vulture each other. We're not going to see that 30 carry game that we had from Kareem Hunt a few weeks ago. So, again, I'm probably going to be underweight on both of these guys. If we look at sort of the ownership here, 26% ownership on Woody Marks, 10% me, easy 10%. Kareem Hunt, yep, lower. Xavier Worthy, I do like. He's a stud. He's been overshadowed by Rashee Rice. He is going to catch a long ball or two at some point. I think that he's sneaky here, but I do love Jaden Higgins. I'm going to be way over the field on this. I'm right at the field on 32% at Dalton Schultz. He's been the biggest beneficiary of Stroud returning. Stroud loves him. He's going to get a bunch of targets here. Butker's fine, but I love Fairbairn. Oh, Hollywood Brown at 1% ownership is like, that's a sneaky GPP play. Don't be afraid to play a little Hollywood Brown there. Neither D is very interesting for me here. Like I said, I love Chubb. I think Hutchinson is fine. I think I like him a little bit more than Christian Kirk, just given that he had 5 targets last week with Stroud back. Juju Smith's almost unplayable. Tyquan Thornton's unplayable. Now we get in sort of our duds here that could catch a touchdown pass. Noah Gray, one of my first favorites here. Ownership's only 66% or 6.6. Missed some time for concussion. I think he can hit value in a hurry here. Jalen Noel. Whoa. Now we're back into the cheat sheet. Something updated on me here. But yeah, Jalen Noel, I think, is a fine sort of punt option as well. Let's see who else we got here at the bottom. There's one more person I think we want to talk about. Let's see. Go to the bottom of my cheat sheet. Oh yeah, Pacheco's mega cheap, I think, at 4,400. He's going to get some usage here. Didn't talk about him yet. Derek Bawale, you need an injury to Fairbairn to be kind of the guy. Robert Tonyan had a few looks, but with Gray out, no real interest here. If Damian Pierce is active, I'll get some action on him in 150 for the revenge narrative. Over on FanDuel, it's really much more of the same this week, but there are a couple of key values that I really want to point out here. Dalton Schultz is massively underpriced. Love him. Fairbairn, massively underpriced. Who else down here? Noah Gray, I like. British Brooks. No, I mean, all these other guys are sort of, turds, for lack of a better term, right? So wanted to show you guys our domination station optimizer. All right, we got single game, 41.5 total, right? Salary range, flex HP, salary cap. We actually know it's bigger on FanDuel, that we have a larger percentage that are under that 60,000. They're actually under that 55,000 for most part. If we're trying to win GPPs again, I think sometimes we force guys into our lineup because we feel like he's the better play, but your story or your lineup has to tell a story. All right. I'm going to go props projection here. So what we can do is we can change the projections that we have. Props projection is just bringing in Vegas. All right. I'm not going to mess with an ownership cap. I'm only going to build like 10 lineups so we save some time. I like to throw in a little bit of randomization. What that does is it gives you when it projects the lineup, so I'm at 20%. We're going to go 20% either side of his projection just randomly. So yeah. One of the nice things we can do on FanDuel, and DraftKings doesn't allow us to do this, is we can just run this bad boy right now and see what it looks like. Let's optimize. And again, I always say, I say it for our DFS Army VIPs all the time, that the DS, which we call this, the domination station, is smarter than me. So let's see what it does. All right. So the DS actually, interesting, liking Stroud a ton. All right. The projection is 23. So let's see what some of those line, and actually it's got a Butker lineup in there too. Interesting. But now you look at it and you go, okay, what sort of story are we telling here? So this one, and this is maybe the trick, right? That we might have to put in some rules, because this is like CJ Stroud as the nuts, or in the nuts without any pass catchers. Stroud's not a runner. Right. So what we can do here is we can put in some legacy stacking. Right. And really what I want to do is if a QB, Patrick Mahomes or CJ Stroud or whoever, right, is in the flex, then stack with no less than one player of tight end and wide receiver from the same team. Okay. Now I add that rule. So now what that's going to do is that's going to make sure that I have a pass catcher in my lineup with that guy. I'm going to do the same thing if Mahomes is MVP, or I'm going to actually say 2. All right. So if he's the MVP captain, then he needs 2. All right. Whereas CJ Stroud, I'm going to go no less than 1. All right. I think Mahomes drags a few guys more with him. But yeah. So now we've got a few rules in there, and we can do that. And then if we enable team force stacking, we talked about earlier that we want, mostly this, right? Very few 1 and 5s. And so I'm just going to say this will just force some of these lineups in there. All right. With 10, it's a little bit tricky. Sometimes it can sort of mess you up, but I'm curious to see what our MVPs look like here. So 40, 20, 20, and we're getting the Chiefs. Not my favorite play, right? But let's see the lineups. All right. Fairbairn, Stroud, and Schultz, Xavier Worthy, Harrison Butker. I mean, great lineup. All right. Let me just see the flex here. What are we? I bet you we are getting like very little Rashee Rice. All right. So we're going to change that on the next run. All right. Because I really want some Rice. Stroud, Collins, Fairbairn, Butker. I mean, I don't hate that lineup. Mahomes, Rice, Fairbairn, Gray. I can see that lineup doing well. I don't love Cade Stover. All right. So then if we were going to want to, change my exposures, this is FanDuel too, by the way. Let's say I'm going to really try to force some Patrick Mahomes MVPs in here, because I just think that's the play. And I'm also going to try to force some Rashee Rice. All right. And I'm just putting this as like a exposure minimum. All right. You could put in a rule that says if Mahomes is the captain, he's got to have Rice. But what I don't like to do is I don't like to restrict the DS more than necessary. I'm also going to bump my randomization down a little bit. I think sometimes in showdowns, what ends up happening is that we get more defense and kickers because of that randomization. So all of a sudden 20% at, a guy who's projecting for 10, you're looking at maybe 12, 13. For a kicker, you're going to get way more of them than you probably want. All right. So if we go here, I got no. Interesting. Don't love Schultz as the MVP. But let's see what it looks like here. These lineups are sorted by projection. Okay, so one thing we can do here too. All right, so I've got a decent lineup here, right? I told you guys I don't like Woody Marks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop off Woody and I'm gonna put in Dalton Schultz in this lineup. All right, and then I'm gonna bump up from Jared Wiley. Okay, and that allows me to build a lineup with like a Noah Gray. All right, so Noah Gray, Rice, Butker, Fairbairn, Schultz. Like that. All right. And again, that little button on the side can help you with that. What am I getting for Kelsey here? Ooh, all right. Let's run this one more time just for fun. Let's do 25% Kelsey. You know what? We're going to uncheck Woody Marks. We're going to uncheck Robbie Tomyan. We're going to uncheck Juju Smith-Schuster. We're actually even going to uncheck Cade Stover. And let's go down here and uncheck a few more guys. I just don't really want any of these duds in my lineups. Am I in MVP or let's go flex? I'm just not interested in any of these guys. Wiley, Dare, Brooks. Yeah, Noah Gray is mega cheap. I like that. Taekwon, Jalen Noel's fine. Nick Chubb. You know what? I'm going to throw a little 10%er on Chubb just because I like him. I think he plays well this week. All right, now we're good. All right, let's see. This is going to be the final run here. And again, I'm just showing you guys this for VIPs who have been here a long time. This is sort of my process that I go through. Obviously takes me a little bit longer than what we're showing here. But it's a decent way to build 10 lineups and in a bit of a hurry, right? So we're getting Mahomes, MVP 50%. Who else are we getting? Fairbairn, Butker. I'd probably get rid of that Xavier Hutchinson lineup, but let's see here. Mahomes, Kelsey, Butker, Gray. Ooh, I love a double tight end. That's like a Millie Maker type of takedown. Stroud, and like, guys, love that lineup, right? Fairbairn, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Rice, Chiefs, Butker, Schultz, Mahomes. Don't hate it. Stroud, Rice, Hutchinson, Fairbairn. Don't mind it. The double quarterback. Yeah, like that. We get Chubb, Butker. The only guy I really want to see who we're getting, like I said, I really do like Higgins, so we need to make sure we're getting a little bit of him, and we got none of them. So let's just run one more with, I'm going to put a little minimum on my boy Jaden Higgins. Let's say 20%. So that's only like, what, 2 lineups out of 10, right? And again, if you're building for more, you're just going to get more combinations, okay? All right. Got to finish this before my battery dies on my computer. All right, we got the 20% Jaden Higgins, and we're getting lots of MVP for Butker. They're loving the DS is loving the kickers tonight. All right, that should tell you something. All right, that really should tell you something tonight. So maybe I need to go back in on my cheat sheet and add them in as MVP or captain spot type of lineups. But yeah, this is a good lineup. Mahomes, Rice, Stroud, Hutchinson, Schultz, Gray. Like, that's solid. Where's my Jaden Higgins lineups? Yep. Fairbairn, Stroud, Higgins, Rice, Chiefs, Buckers. Solid, right? Solid. There's absolutely a scenario where the Chiefs can win and we don't get Mahomes in the MVP lineup, especially if the defense scores. All right. And we're sort of projecting this to be a lower scoring game. Absolutely possibility. So that's what I got for you guys. Again, I hope this helps. Find me in the chat. I will help you out with building lineups tonight. If you got anything at DFSUpNorth, you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, or at DFSArmy.com. Peace, everybody.